I signed the divorce papers with shaking hands, watching my husband walk away with our 2 children. His mother stood behind him, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. She'd finally gotten what she wanted. But 3 years later, when the truth came out, it didn't just end her life. It ended his empire, his sanity, and everything he ever loved. By then, I'd already decided I didn't need any of them anymore. Before we dive into my story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends and drop a comment telling me, have you ever been falsely accused of something you didn't do? Have you ever had someone destroy your life and smile while doing it? Let's get into it because this gets dark, really dark. You know, they say marriage is about 2 people becoming one, but nobody tells you what happens when a third person decides they want to tear you apart. For me, that person was my mother-in-law, and she didn't just want to separate us. She wanted to destroy me completely. Let me take you back 8 years. I was 30 years old, running my own interior design firm, and I just landed a contract to redesign a boutique hotel in Manhattan. That's where I met him. Preston Caldwell, tech billionaire, self-made, brilliant, and honestly the most charming man I'd ever met. He wasn't one of those trust fund babies. He'd built his software company from nothing. And I respected that. We connected instantly. 6 months later, we were married. 2 years after that, we had our daughter, Kennedy. 3 years later, our son, Miles. Life was perfect. Or at least I thought it was. But from day one, his mother, Margaret Caldwell, made it clear that I was not what she had in mind for her precious son. She never said it directly. Of course, people like her never do. It was always little comments, little digs wrapped in fake concern. At our wedding, she told guests I looked surprisingly elegant in my dress. When Kennedy was born, she asked the nurse if babies darken over time. When I cooked Sunday dinner, she'd push her plate away and say, ethnic food upset her stomach. Meanwhile, she'd load up on the mac and cheese I made, but God forbid she compliment the jerk chicken sitting right next to it. Preston always defended her. That's just how she is, he'd say. She's from a different generation. I swallowed it. I smiled. I played the perfect daughter-in-law because I loved my husband and I loved our children. I thought if I just kept being kind, kept proving myself, she'd eventually come around. I was so stupid. Things started changing when I landed the biggest project of my career. A luxury hotel chain wanted to redesign 15 properties across the country. It was a $40 million contract. My business partner, Andre, who I'd known since college, and I were running the project together. Andre was like a brother to me. He was gay, happily married to his husband, and had 3 adopted kids. There was nothing romantic between us. There never had been. There never would be. But that didn't matter to Margaret. The project required late nights, business dinners, travel to different cities for presentations. Preston knew all of this. He knew Andre. He'd been to their house for barbecues, played with their kids. But slowly, I started noticing changes. Preston would ask me where I'd been, who I'd been with, what time I got home. His tone was different, suspicious, cold. I'd catch him scrolling through my phone at night when he thought I was asleep. Then the children started acting strange. Kennedy, who was 7 at the time, asked me one day, "Mommy, why don't you love Daddy anymore?" I was shocked. I sat her down and asked her where she got that idea. She looked down at her little hands and whispered, "Grandma said so." That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. What I didn't know was that Margaret had been executing a plan for months. She'd befriended Andre, invited him to family dinners when I was traveling for work. She'd get him drunk and take pictures of him with women she'd hired. Then she'd use AI technology to Photoshop my face into those pictures. She created fake email accounts in my name. She sent messages to Andre's phone that looked like love letters from me. She hired a private investigator, not to find the truth, but to create lies. She had fake hotel receipts printed, fake bank statements showing cash withdrawals I never made. She even created deep fake videos of me entering hotels with Andre. And Preston believed every single word of it. The night my life ended, Preston invited me to a family dinner at his mother's house. I thought it was strange, but I went. When I walked into that dining room, his entire family was there, his brother, his sister, his aunts, and uncles. And there at the head of the table, sat Margaret with a laptop open in front of her. "We need to talk about your affair," Preston said coldly. I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought it was some kind of sick joke. But then Margaret started the slideshow. Picture after picture of me and Andre. Except it wasn't really me. It was my face on someone else's body. Videos of me walking into hotels, bank statements, text messages. Everything looked so real. I kept saying, "This isn't real. This is fake. Preston, you know me. You know I would never." But he wouldn't listen. He wouldn't even look at me. Then Margaret did something that I will never ever forgive. She brought my children into that dining room. Kennedy and Miles, both in their pajamas, confused and scared, and pressed and looked at them and said, "Ask your mother why she's been lying to us." Kennedy started crying. Miles hid behind his grandmother, and I just stood there frozen, watching my entire world collapse. "Tell them the truth," Preston demanded. "Confess what you did." "I didn't do anything," I screamed. "Preston, please. This is insane. Call Andre. Call his husband. They'll tell you." I already called him. Preston said he admitted everything. That was a lie. I found out later that Margaret had paid Andre $500,000 to disappear and stay quiet. She'd threatened to destroy his business and his family if he said anything. Preston's brother grabbed my arm and physically dragged me out of the house. My house, the home where I'd raised my babies. He threw my belongings onto the front lawn while neighbors watched. Margaret stood in the doorway holding my children. And I swear to God, she was smiling. The divorce papers were filed overnight. Margaret had connections everywhere, including to the family of the judge assigned to our case. I didn't stand a chance. Preston got full custody. I was granted supervised visitation 2 hours per week. 2 hours with my own children. The first visitation was the worst day of my life. Kennedy wouldn't even look at me. When I tried to hug her, she pushed me away and said, "You're not my real mother anymore." Miles wet himself when I reached for him. The supervisor wrote in her report that the children were traumatized by the mother's presence. My business collapsed. Andre abandoned our project and blamed me for ruining his reputation. Clients can-led contracts left and right. Margaret's friends launched a social media campaign, calling me a homewrecker, a cheater, a woman who abandoned her family for selfish desires. Even my own mother called me one night and asked, "Did you really do it? Because I can't defend you if you did." I lost everything. My home, my savings, my reputation, my career, my children, everything. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in a bad neighborhood. I couldn't afford a lawyer to appeal the custody decision. I worked 3 jobs just to pay rent and fund the supervised visits that my children hated. There were dark days, really dark days. I wrote goodbye letters to Kennedy and Miles. I stood on my apartment balcony at 3 o'clock in the morning, looking down at the street below, thinking how easy it would be to just end the pain. But then I looked at a photo of my babies and I realized something. If I died, Margaret won forever. My children would grow up believing their mother was evil. That I had abandoned them. That I was everything she said I was. And I couldn't let that happen. So, I made a vow. I would survive. I would rebuild. I would document everything. And I would wait for the truth to come out because the truth always comes out eventually. 3 years. 3 years of absolute hell. I scraped together enough money to hire a private investigator of my own. I rebuilt my business from nothing. Taking tiny projects, working 18-hour days. I documented every supervised visitation. Every time the children rejected me, every time Margaret whispered poison in their ears while I watched helplessly. Then something happened. A celebrity client took a chance on me. One project led to another. I got featured in a design magazine. I started winning awards again. Slowly, painfully, I was rising from the ashes. But the pain never stopped. Kennedy was 10 years old now, and during one court hearing, she told the judge she never wanted to see me again. Preston had gotten engaged to a white woman. Surprise, surprise. His mother had chosen her, and she was pregnant. He was building a whole new family while I was still fighting for scraps of time with the children I'd given birth to. Then everything changed. Andre's marriage fell apart. His husband found evidence of the $500,000 payment from Margaret. Consumed by guilt and facing divorce, Andre finally came forward. He brought everything: receipts, recordings, text messages where Margaret had given him explicit instructions on how to help her destroy me. Then the private investigator Margaret had hired came forward, too. He had terminal cancer and wanted to clear his conscience before he died. He admitted she'd paid him $2 million to fabricate evidence. He had recordings of every conversation they'd had. The story went viral. National news. Social media exploded. And then the most shocking detail emerged. I wasn't the first. Margaret had done this to 3 other daughters-in-law before me. All of them were women of color. All of them had lost their children. One of them had committed suicide. I was the 4th victim, but I was the first one who survived to see justice. Criminal charges were filed against Margaret. Preston's company stock crashed because he'd been implicated in covering up evidence when it first started coming to light. His fiancée left him immediately. Turns out she didn't want to be associated with a national scandal. Everything he'd built came crashing down. Margaret had a massive stroke from the stress. She was left paralyzed and unable to speak. Her own family abandoned her. She died alone in a nursing home 6 months later with nobody at her bedside. Preston lost his company, his fortune, his reputation. His own brother testified against him in court. He developed severe depression and turned to alcohol. The man who'd once been worth $3 billion was now living in a rented apartment, unemployed and broken. But the worst part, the children. Court-ordered reunification therapy began. Kennedy was 10 years old when she finally read the court documents and news articles. She realized she'd been manipulated her entire childhood. She came to our first unsupervised visit and just collapsed in my arms, sobbing. "Mommy, I'm so sorry," she cried. "I said such horrible things to you. I hated you and you didn't do anything wrong." Miles had nightmares about the bad grandma. He'd wake up screaming in the middle of the night. Both of my babies needed therapy to deal with the trauma of what Margaret had done to them. I got full custody. The children didn't want to see Preston. Their trust in him was completely destroyed. How could they forgive a father who believed lies over truth? Who chose his mother over them? But here's the thing. We lost 3 years. 3 years of Kennedy's childhood. 3 years of Miles growing up. I missed school plays, birthday parties, first days of school, lost teeth, scraped knees, bedtime stories. Those years are gone forever. No amount of justice can bring them back. Preston showed up at my door one night, drunk and desperate. He fell to his knees on my porch, begging me to forgive him, begging me to take him back, threatening to kill himself if I didn't give him another chance. I called the police. I had a restraining order filed. And I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You didn't just break my heart, Preston. You broke our children's souls. You chose to believe a lie because it was easier than defending me. You will live with that for the rest of your life. Now get off my property." I never saw him again. Today, 5 years after that nightmare began, my business is an international empire. I designed properties in 12 countries. Kennedy is 15 now, an honor student who wants to be a lawyer to help other kids in custody battles. Miles is 13, in therapy, but getting stronger every day. We're healing slowly, but we're healing. I started a foundation for falsely accused mothers. 12 women came forward with similar stories, not all involving Margaret, but involving other people who'd weaponized the family court system against innocent parents. We're fighting to change laws, to make parental alienation a recognized form of abuse. I never remarried. I don't think I ever will. The trust is just gone. But I found peace in my work, in my children, in my purpose. And then 2 years after Margaret died, I received a letter from her estate lawyer. She'd left everything to me. $47 million and a confession letter that explained everything. Her husband, Preston's father, had left her for a black woman 30 years ago. That woman had destroyed Margaret's perfect life, or so she thought. So Margaret decided to destroy every black woman who came into her sons' lives. She wanted revenge. She wanted us all to suffer the way she'd suffered. $47 million of blood money. Sitting in an account with my name on it, I donated every single penny to organizations fighting parental alienation, supporting falsely accused parents and helping children heal from family trauma. I didn't want her money. I didn't want anything that came from her. I wanted her legacy to be this: that she tried to destroy me and failed. That hate and bitterness and racism poisoned her soul until there was nothing left. And that despite everything she did, I survived. My children survived. And we're using our story to help others survive, too. So, that's my story. 3 years of absolute hell, but I came out on the other side. And if you're going through something similar right now, false accusations, parental alienation, toxic in-laws who want to destroy you, please know this. Document everything. Trust your truth and don't you dare give up. Your children will know the truth eventually. The people who abandoned you will see they were wrong and you will survive this. Drop a comment telling me, should I have kept that $47 million? Would you have? And if this story shook you, if it made you feel something, please share it. Someone out there needs to hear this right now. Hit that subscribe button because I share more real stories like this every week. Remember, they can take your present, but they can't take your future unless you let them stay strong. Keep fighting. The truth always wins in the end. Thanks for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next.